Good afternoon. I'm Lorraine. And today we're going to be doing our second last letter with the wellness gathering, taking ownership of your well-being with the principles of core alignment. And today we're going to be doing a focus on impression. And Lynne Hilderman, she's our facilitator. She's going to lead us in a very interesting, thought-provoking discussion.
Thank you. Yes, it's always a discovery, right? We're going to leave an impression here today. So we're going to start with a question because that's something we do, is say your name, say where you are. And the question for tonight is, tell us something you like to do with your hands. And so I am Lynn, and I am in Calgary, Alberta. And something that I like to do with my hands. Well, I work with my hands. I touch people. But something I particularly really like to do is work feet. I love the technique of how my hands move when I'm working feet, because there's a certain way that I move my digits. And it's just something I love to do. Like, I will play with somebody's feet if they're sitting beside me, even hands. So that's just something I like to do with my hands. How about you, Madeline?
I'm Madeline. I'm in Calgary, Alberta. And something I like to do with my hands. Oh, that's interesting. I like to sort clothes and sort and put away dishes and tidy things up. That's what I like to do with my hands. I'm not a good cleaner, but I'm an excellent tidier. So I would say that that's what I like to do with my hands.
Awesome. All right. Olive?
My name's Olive. I'm in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I like to do a variety of things with my hands. I like to knit. I'm not a fancy knitter, but I knit like standard things like tea cozies and dishcloths. And when I retired almost 6 years ago, I took up quilting. That's one of the things I like to do with my hands. Two of the things I like to do with my hands, I guess.
Cool. Awesome. How about you, Hattie Jane?
Hi, I'm Hattie Jane. I'm in the lower 48 down in Virginia. And when you mentioned that, I thought, well, I love to go out there and clear the shrubbery and pull weeds and tidy things up in the yard and find the new things and trim them. And that's lately what I've enjoyed doing.
Cool.
Or the cold weather came. Now I'm in. I'll see what I do.
Or catching the little mice. Any more mice?
Oh, yes. I let go the 15 into a wonderful woodland. And then one showed up the next morning.
Oh,
We're going to keep catching.
nice. How about you, Lorraine?
I'm Lorraine. I'm in Osoyoos, British Columbia. And that's an interesting question. You never really think about what you enjoy doing with your hands. So I think I enjoy being a friend. My Bart French. I use my hands a lot for talking, but I used to enjoy making apple strudel and stretching the dough. It's very delicate work. So I think baking comes to mind as well. And so that's what I enjoy doing with my hands, although I'm not making apple strudel nowadays, but there is a video on up there about me making apple strudel.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, well, that's so awesome. Well, our hands are so important to us, right? And, our hands are for doing and our feet are for moving. And I thought this question would play into today with looking at, impression and first impressions, just impressions in general, when we, how we gather information to support our health and our wellness as we're, taking more ownership for our health and our bodies. So, I think working with our hands, we do a lot of things with our hands. I mean, you think just rubbing cream on your body or brushing our teeth, or so much comes through our hands. So this idea of impressions and how impression plays into our health and our wellness and our bodies and how we care for them. So what comes to mind when you think of this sense of impression within taking more ownership for your health and your wellness, and how our hands help us? Olive?
Gosh, I worked in dentistry for almost 40 years, and in dentistry, an impression is you take a mixture of alginate and take impressions of people's teeth. So that's the first thing that, and you use your hands to do that. So that's the first thing that came to my head when I thought of impression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I thought of that too. Like just I thought of sinking my hands into clay, or putting my hands in paint and painting with my hands. So, so what about you, Madeline?
Well, I have to confess, the first thought when I was thinking impression was, like a thumbprint cookie. So making a dent. That was the first thing that came to mind. But when we start talking about it in terms of our ownership, I would say that what more relevant to my health and wellness would be the impression I have of myself or that self-talk when I, look at myself in the mirror, or I am being, doing hand cream or body cream or something, and the impression that I am speaking of myself. And how sometimes it can be really negative, like very judgmental. And so the impression that we have of ourselves, I think, is really important and worthy of paying attention to exactly what you think about when you're putting cream on your body or doing some kind of, brushing your teeth or doing something. The impression that you have about yourself, I think, is worthy of noting.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Like, because I all have a first impression of something. I can have a first impression of myself or of another, or walking into a room and getting a sense, or meeting somebody, there's going to be an impression. And how much of that is, or even just how I care for myself, or look at myself in the mirror and either judge or criticize, or all kinds of self-talk can make impressions in the mind. So, Hattie Jane?
Well, my thought of impression was in self-care, noticing things are happening and evaluating them on a realistic, hopeful method. I've been blessed with neuropathy, and we did surgery on my neck and we did surgery on my hand, and I left the other hand alone. Well, they both feel the same, except when I'm brushing my hair, straightening my hair up this earlier, I dropped the hairbrush on my head. So one of the neuropathy problems is that a period of time comes when you don't maintain the grip because your nerve innervations just don't hold. So, okay, now where's this part? Now, where am I now? What's going down? We'll see, but it's a journey that's been very interesting, and will continue to be. So it's taking responsibility for self-care and self-management, and recognizing where I am in the parameters that my body are giving me. and
Got it.
encouraging other people to give me more information when they're kind of aware of something, but it's not in focus yet.
Mhm.
And ask questions to see if they can bring it more in focus what they've noticed, because it'll be subtle.
Got it. Yeah. And that's just it with some impressions. We don't have all the information,
We usually don't.
don't, right? And how important it is to gather more, well, to recognize we're always gathering information, but sometimes the clarity isn't there, which makes us want to gather more information so we can
Or
be
not,
more clear. Yeah.
because we can also allow the impression to frighten us.
Yeah.
Because it's an impression. We don't have all the background. We don't have all the awareness. We're not sure where it goes in reality.
Yeah.
And that's where more investigation and hope continue to explore goes into.
Mhm.
That's what impression.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. How about you, Lorraine?
Yeah, I quite agree. My first thought of it, and I said the word impression is being what impression am I putting out to other people? And sometimes my impression could be very negative, just by the thought, the feelings that I have. And but generally speaking, it's I try to be a positive person. The negative part of it, I was saying that the impression I gave when I got very, very angry at my sewing machine a few years ago, and I was pissed off, pardon me, off with my machine, and I was angry. So whatever impression I put forth at that moment, it scared me and it scared Randall. So you can just get the feeling of the impression, and but the general impression of looking at yourself in the mirror in the morning and feeling good, telling yourself that, giving that affirmation that you're going to stand tall and give a good impression. But you can see the difference in that feeling and the anger feeling.
Yes, yes. No, and it's powerful because when a feeling like that comes through, it's like it just comes straight through. There's no filter.
No.
And it can give an impression. Well, it sounds like it gave an impression to you internally, but also to someone around you. But then there's this place of like, well, we are all human and don't know what we don't know, and where stuff like that comes from in some ways. So, well, so with the impression, like that we're looking at impression and how we care for ourselves, what we do with our health and our wellness at any stage of life. What kind of things do you think really make a difference to helping us recognize the impression that we're either making or gathering or showing, or what kind of things make a difference to how you care for yourselves? Lorraine?
Oh, I think that the impression, I think, is feeling comfortable about where you are today and what motivates you to have a purpose in life. And if you get a real clear picture of that, it gives myself, the impression that I'm on the right track at the right time, in the right environment, and that. So I think just hanging on to, and that just gives me exciting purpose, and motivation to just put out that impression of what I really believe it's true to me.
Yeah. Olive?
I think you have, or myself, I think I have to not necessarily trust or form a strong opinion about something from my first impression of that person or that event or that feeling. I don't really trust first impressions, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Got it. Got it. Madeline?
What is most important? Sorry, I lost the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's more, yeah, when you think of, this whole idea of impression and how we are with our health and our wellness and how we, support ourselves, what kind of things make a difference?
Make a difference. I think keeping things simple makes a big difference, not over complicating things and really trying to aim for a simple thread through anything, almost anything, any situation or first impression as it was talked about, or just how you relate to yourself in the morning. I think the simple thread through is really the best, because I think what happens for me is that I start overthinking things and I start creating scenarios that could be and not even in the realm of real. They're just scenarios, that made up scenarios in my mind, and I think those have value, and yet there's no real basis for it. It's just that made up thing. So I think keeping things simple is the answer for me personally.
Got it. Got it. How about you, Hattie Jane?
I'm like, Madeline, what was the original question?
What was that impression that we were?
What was that
Well,
impression?
we've been talking just about impression and how it, how we are with the impression of ourselves, how we are with the impression of events, what we do with taking care of ourselves, how we, what kind of impression do I leave on others, all how impression, what kind of, am I leaving a dent in things? I guess that's kind of what.
It's so strange, because thinking about and hearing you wording it, I feel like I don't take responsibility for my impression. I'm aware that I'm checking out clothing I'm putting on. I like it to be put together. I like things I would like to wear so they look nice for other folks and they're comfortable for me. But in a strange way, I don't take the degree of responsibility that Lorraine does. It's like it's hard enough to get up and get moving and get around and get from one step to the next. And that I take responsibility for. And if it doesn't look right to people, well, that's their problem. However, that doesn't take into account the relationships I would like to build and maintain and instruct. So there's like a disconnect in my head about whether or not I take responsibility.
Got it.
But,
Got it. Yeah, it's interesting just talking about this word and looking at everything that we've gathered through this conversation so far around, around the impression that I either make on myself or I make on others or that I'm creating. And so when I think of my health and my wellness and how I care for myself, I concur with what has been already spoken about is, what am I judging about myself when I see myself, recognizing, like all of it said, like it's not really that my first impression is really not, I don't need to hook onto it, because that first impression is really like, it's a fleeting moment. And if I all of a sudden create or go with it, then I'm down a rabbit hole of something that isn't real or true or
necessary.
so Yeah, or necessary, exactly, or necessary. And so, and it does play into that sense of taking responsibility for that moment of actually recognizing that impression or that reflection or that constant mind chatter that might be going on, especially like over Zoom as an example, because I shut off my self view, so I'm not looking at myself, and then I feel like I'm in the room having coffee or tea with everyone, which I find really helpful. But if it's there, I'm watching myself, and it's like, oh my God. So, it's never what it seems. And I know that was something that Kate Michaels would always say. Nothing is ever what it seems. And I think that plays into how, taking more ownership for our health, like we've been talking through all these conversations and looking at different words and bringing into this idea of being more aligned with what's real and true for us at our core. How it really kind of adds to this element of impression, the impressions and the things we do for ourselves, maybe with our hands, maybe with something else, right? So what will you take with you from this conversation that will support you until we talk again? Lorraine?
What I'll take away from this conversation until we talk again, I think the perspectives that we've had from all of us, has been very illuminating and very interesting, because you think impressions, your teeth, and putting your thumb mark on things, and then you go in. So I think it's been absolutely fantastic to think, wow, there's so much more to the word impression and what we do with it and how we receive it, perceive it, and express it, and all that. So it's been totally enjoyable.
Patty J, what will you take with you that'll support you until we talk again?
An awareness that I have been abdicating my responsibility to myself to be aware of my impressions, perception for other people toward me. And that things that I have chosen to ignore so I could get through time and space, so maybe I can take ownership of some of those again and then enjoy the process even more.
Awesome. Madeline?
What I will take with me that will support me until we talk again. Well, it certainly don't sweat the small stuff came to mind, right? That moment of the impression I want to give is really the impression I want to give myself. That's kind of where I'm at. So I think that,
awesome.
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Olive?
I will take from this conversation today the observation of the diversity of not even just this group, but of the people and things that are out in the world, and to maybe not judge things by the first impression that I have, to give people and events a chance to show me their importance.
Awesome. Well, what I will take with me from this conversation is this element of just showing up, and for a random word that we're just pulling out of somewhere and creating magic with it, really creating something that I feel lit up. I don't know, everyone to me looks lit up, and I think that these conversations are very uplifting, and I don't need to know where it's going to go. Like, it's like I can have an idea of where it's going to go, but I don't need to know where it's going to go. It just kind of unfolds in the mystery. So what will you take with you that'll support you for the rest of your life, Madeline?
What I will take with me that will support me for the rest of my life, encourage me to keep doing these conversations as long as they're available to be, show up when I can. And it is very interesting to take random words, exactly what you just said, and explore them in ways that are pertinent to ourselves. That's the cool part.
Mhm. Lorraine?
Yeah, I quite agree, Madeline. What I'll take away from the rest of my life is just the excitement of analyzing a word and how it pertains to our own personal experience and what we're going to do with it afterwards. And it's such an interesting concept.
Good. Olive?
What I will take away from the conversation today that will support me for the rest of my life is to be open to other people's opinions and to appreciate what everyone has to say.
Hattie Jane?
Well, I think I'll take your word of unfolding and enjoy it through that this is what life is, and I will enjoy the process, which is a very important part of what we do.
Awesome. Yeah, it is. Yes, that
Awesome.
brings to mind an image, just like of a flower blossoming. But that's what I'll take away is the joy and the pleasure it is to set an intention and set a time and a space and to show up and see what happens and then notice how it's supporting me in my life, really. And how taking a word, it's so limited if I just think it's that word, but so much can come from just seeing what it is for other people, because I have no idea what it is. I might only put it into a little tiny box, and it's so much more. So thank you for showing up. We've got one more for this round, and we'll see you next time.
Next Monday, we'll be doing P for passionate. So thank you very much, and we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.